I gave birth to quadruplets, and my husband had the guts to ask for a divorce the same day. Emily Johnson still felt the contractions from the final moments of labor when she finally held her 4 babies in her arms. 12 hours of hard work, but there they were, perfect, each wrapped in colorful blankets the nurse had lovingly chosen. That's when Jason walked into the room holding a folder of documents. His expression was different, cold, as if he were a stranger. Emily smiled, thinking they were hospital papers or something related to the baby's birth. "Hi, honey. Look how beautiful they are," she whispered, adjusting the baby in the red blanket who was whimpering softly. Jason didn't approach the bed. He stood there holding those papers as if they weighed a ton. "Emily, I need to talk to you," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "Not now, Jay. I'm exhausted. Come meet our children properly. Look how much the one in the blue blanket looks like you." She tried to smile, but something in his posture made her uneasy. "These are divorce papers," he announced, as casually as commenting on the weather. The nurse, who was still adjusting the room's equipment, stopped what she was doing. The silence grew heavy, broken only by the tiny sounds of the newborns. "What did you say?" Emily asked, thinking she must have misheard. The exhaustion must be playing tricks on her. "I can't stay married anymore. I can't pretend this is what I want," Jason repeated, holding the papers out to her. Emily looked down at the 4 babies in her arms. The one in the yellow blanket had opened its little eyes and stared at her, as if understanding everything. She tried to process his words, but her brain seemed to have shut down. "You're joking, right? It's the exhaustion. You're not thinking straight," she stammered, holding the babies tighter. "I've thought about this a lot. Ever since we found out there were 4, I just can't do it." He looked away. The nurse discreetly stepped closer to Emily, as if to shield her. "Sir, perhaps this isn't the most appropriate time." The professional tried to intervene. "There's no appropriate time for this, and I need to be honest now," Jason snapped impatiently. Emily felt the world spinning. The babies seemed to sense her distress and began to squirm restlessly in her arms. "Jason, I just gave birth. Our children were born 2 hours ago. How can you be talking about divorce?" "Because I never wanted this, Emily. I never wanted 4 kids at once. It's too much responsibility, too much expense, too much everything." Tears began streaming down her face, dripping onto the baby's colorful blankets. "But you said you were happy when we found out there were 4. You helped me pick their names," she whispered. "I tried to convince myself, but I can't. I'm sorry." He set the papers on the bedside table and turned to leave. "Jason, wait. You can't leave me like this. I need you. They need their father," Emily cried out, but he had already left the room. The nurse stepped closer and gently helped Emily settle back with the babies. "Mrs. Johnson, you need to calm down. The babies can sense when their mother is upset," the nurse said, though her own voice trembled with indignation. Emily couldn't stop crying. She looked at her 4 children and wondered how she would manage everything alone. The doctor entered the room minutes later, drawn by the commotion. "What happened here?" Dr. Robert asked, taking in his patient's state. "Her husband just asked for a divorce. He brought the papers right here to the room," the nurse explained, visibly shaken. "Here? Now?" The doctor was incredulous. "In 30 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out." Now, continuing. 2 hours later, Mrs. Margaret, Jason's mother, rushed into the hospital. Her eyes were red, and she wore the expression of someone who had been crying on the way. "Emily, my dear, I heard what my son did. I'm so ashamed." Mrs. Margaret approached the bed and looked at her grandchildren with tear-filled eyes. "Mrs. Margaret, I don't understand what's happening. He seemed happy about the pregnancy," Emily managed to say between sobs. "He called me an hour ago saying he wouldn't be living in New York City anymore, that he sold your house without telling you," Mrs. Margaret revealed, her voice trembling. "Sold the house? Our house?" Emily felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. "The money is in an account you don't have access to. He's planning to move to Chicago today." Emily looked at the babies sleeping peacefully, unaware of the chaos that had descended on their lives before they'd even completed a single day of existence. "But why, Mrs. Margaret? What did I do wrong?" she asked, desperate for answers. "You did nothing, my dear. My son is the one who's completely lost his mind. Jessica, his sister, told me he's been getting strange calls for weeks." "What kind of calls?" "She's not sure, but he gets nervous every time the phone rings. And ever since you found out it was 4 babies, he changed completely." At that moment, Jessica entered the room. She had been the maid of honor at Emily and Jason's wedding, and her face showed a mix of anger and sadness. I tried talking to my brother, but he won't budge." Jessica approached and kissed her sister-in-law's forehead. "Jessica, do you know what's going on with him? Your mom mentioned some calls." Emily begged for explanations. "Look, I didn't want to tell you this now, but he's been consulting lawyers since your 5th month of pregnancy." The silence in the room was deafening. Even the babies seemed to have stopped moving. "What do you mean?" Emily whispered. "He called me last month asking about divorce, about splitting assets. I thought it was just first-time dad nerves, especially with 4 at once. He planned this for months." Emily felt as though she was discovering she'd been married to a complete stranger. "It seems so. And there's more." Jessica hesitated, glancing at her mother, who nodded for her to continue. "He requested paternity tests for the babies." "Paternity tests?" Emily nearly shouted, startling the babies. "He thinks I cheated on him." "We don't know what he's thinking, but the paperwork has already been filed by his lawyer." Mrs. Margaret moved closer to her daughter-in-law and held her free hand. "Emily, I'll help you. I won't leave you and my grandchildren with nothing. My son may have lost all decency, but I haven't," the woman said firmly. "Thank you, Mrs. Margaret, but I don't even know where to start. How will I take care of 4 babies alone?" "You're not alone," Jessica assured her. "I'll help too. We'll figure it out." That night, as Emily tried breastfeeding the babies for the first time, a hospital social worker appeared in the room. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm the hospital social worker. I need to speak with you about some procedures." The woman, who introduced herself as Deborah, had a serious expression. "Is there a problem with the babies?" Emily panicked. "No, the babies are perfectly fine, but I received a request from your husband's lawyer. They want me to document the conditions in which the babies are being cared for." "Conditions? What conditions?" Emily didn't understand. "It's standard procedure in separation cases involving minors. They want to make sure you're capable of taking care of the 4 babies on your own." "You mean they think I can't handle my own children?" "That's not it. But with 4 newborns, they need to assess whether you have adequate financial and emotional support." Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. It wasn't enough that she'd been abandoned just hours after giving birth. Now she had to prove she deserved to keep her children. "What if they decide I'm not capable?" she asked, afraid of the answer. "We'll work to make sure that doesn't happen. I'll document all the support you have from family and friends." When the social worker left, Jessica returned to the room with news from the family. I talked to cousin Amanda. She told me something you need to know." "What now?" Emily was physically and emotionally exhausted. "Jason owes money to a lot of people. Amanda said he's been borrowing from relatives for months. Borrowing, but he always said our finances were fine. Yeah, well, there's more. He used my dad's name to get credit in some places." Mrs. Margaret, who had stepped out to get coffee, returned just then and overheard. "What do you mean he used your father's name?" she asked, outraged. "He forged Dad's signature on some documents. Dad found out today when he went to the bank and learned about loans he never took." "My God, how far has that boy gone?" Mrs. Margaret sank into a chair, shaken. "Mrs. Margaret, do you know his friends?" "Maybe someone knows more," Emily suggested. "I'll call Michael. He was the best man at your wedding. He must know something." When Mrs. Margaret called Michael, more revelations came. He said Jason had tried to sell the family car without telling Emily, but backed off when he couldn't forge her signature on the paperwork. "Michael also said my son admitted he never wanted kids, let alone 4 at once," Mrs. Margaret reported, her voice breaking. "But then why did he agree to try for a baby? Why put on that whole act when we found out about the twins?" Emily was confused and hurt. According to Michael, he thought it would just be 1 baby, When they found out it was 4, he panicked. Emily looked at her children, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around them. How could anyone not want these perfect little beings? There's one more thing, Em. Jessica hesitated again. Just say it, Jess. It can't be worse than it already is. He cancelled your apartment lease. The landlord called to say you have to move out by the end of the week. Emily felt like she was trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. In less than 24 hours, she'd lost her husband, her home, her financial security, and now she had nowhere to live with the babies. Where am I supposed to go with 4 newborns, she asked, more to herself than the others. You'll stay with me, Mrs. Margaret decided instantly. My house is big enough for everyone. But Mrs. Margaret, 4 babies mean a lot of work, a lot of noise. I raised 5 children, dear, I know what it's like. And these are my grandchildren. I won't let you end up on the street because of my son's irresponsibility. The next day, when Emily was discharged from the hospital, she discovered Jason had cancelled the family health insurance. Only her basic plan remained, which didn't cover the special care one of the babies, the one wrapped in the blue blanket, would need. How could he do this? Emily asked the insurance representative who called to notify her. Ma'am, the account holder has the right to make changes, but I can guide you on getting an individual plan. With what money? I don't have any income of my own, she replied, feeling increasingly desperate. The one who showed up to help was Sarah, her best friend since college. She had heard about the situation through Jessica and went straight to Mrs. Margaret's house. Emily, I brought some things for the babies, Sarah said, carrying several bags. And I came to make you an offer. What offer? Remember, I work at a digital marketing company. They need someone to work from home, creating social media posts. The pay isn't much, but it's something. Sarah, I can barely think straight, let alone work. You can do it when the babies are sleeping. It's flexible, and it'll give you financial independence. But I don't know anything about digital marketing. I'll teach you. You've always been good with words, it'll work out. Mrs. Margaret, who was preparing bottles in the kitchen, joined the conversation. Emily, take Sarah's offer. You need independence. You can't rely just on me. Do you really think I can do it? With 4 babies? We'll help you. I can watch them for a few hours a day, Mrs. Margaret offered. And I can come by after work to help, Sarah added. That afternoon, while the babies slept, Mrs. Jenkins arrived, Mrs. Margaret's retired neighbor, who had worked as a nurse for 40 years. Margaret told me about your situation. I came to offer help, said the grey-haired woman with a warm smile. What kind of help? Emily asked. I can stay overnight so you can rest. I know how to care for newborns, and I have free time. Mrs. Jenkins, I can't pay you, Emily said, embarrassed. Who said anything about payment? You think I'd leave a young woman alone with 4 babies? Especially after what that man did, the woman replied indignantly. But it's so much work. Work is what keeps us alive, dear. I was retired and bored at home. Taking care of these babies will do me good too. That night, Emily slept 4 hours straight for the first time since giving birth. Mrs. Jenkins had cared for the babies with an efficiency that even impressed Mrs. Margaret. She has a magic touch, Mrs. Margaret remarked at breakfast. It's a blessing, Emily agreed, but I feel guilty accepting so much help. Emily, accepting help isn't weakness. It's smart. You're in a tough spot and need support. There's nothing wrong with that, Mrs. Jenkins explained, while rocking one of the babies. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. A week later, Emily got a call that would completely change her perspective. It was from a company where she had sent her resume 2 years earlier, when she still dreamed of returning to work. Hello, may I speak with Emily Johnson? Asked a woman's voice. Speaking. This is Rachel, from the HR consulting firm. I have a remote work opportunity for you. Emily nearly dropped the phone. How was it possible that now, when her life was upside down, an opportunity would appear? Remote work, she repeated, disbelieving. Yes, we need someone to coordinate online training. I saw your resume in our database, and your experience is a perfect fit. Could this interest you? Yes, absolutely, but I need to be honest. I just had 4 babies and I'm going through a divorce. I understand. That's exactly why remote work could be ideal. You can set your own hours based on your availability. When Emily hung up, she looked at the babies sleeping in the makeshift crib in the living room and felt for the first time in days a glimmer of hope. "Mrs. Margaret, I think things might start getting better," she remarked. "God doesn't abandon those who have faith, my dear," Mrs. Margaret replied. But the peace didn't last long. The next day, Jason showed up at his mother's house with a lawyer in tow. Mrs. Margaret opened the door with a cold expression. "What do you want here?" she asked her son. "I came to pick up a few things and talk to Emily," Jason replied, avoiding his mother's gaze. "Talk about what? Haven't you done enough damage already?" The lawyer stepped forward. "Ma'am, my client has rights to the couple's shared assets and also wishes to establish a visitation schedule with the children." Mrs. Margaret let out a bitter laugh. "Visitation? The man abandoned his family at the hospital and now he wants visitation?" Emily appeared in the doorway holding two of the babies. The other two were in Mrs. Jenkins' arms. She had arrived for her afternoon shift. "What do you want, Jason?" Emily asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I want to settle things. The divorce, child support, visitation." "Now you want to settle things, after disappearing for a week." "Emily, I know you're angry, but..." "Angry?" She cut him off. "Jason, you left me 2 hours after I gave birth to our children. You sold our house, cancelled our plans. Angry doesn't even cover it." The lawyer tried to intervene. "Let's try to resolve this civilly regarding child support." "Child support will be decided by the judge," Mrs. Margaret snapped. "Do you think we're fools?" "Mrs. Margaret, please," Jason tried to reason with his mother. "Please nothing, you've shamed this family, now face the consequences." During the tense exchange, one of the babies started crying and soon the other three joined in. The noise echoed through the house, creating chaos that only made Jason look more uncomfortable. "You see, it's like this all the time, there's no peace," he complained. "They're babies, Jason." "Babies cry," Emily replied, going to retrieve the other two from Mrs. Jenkins. "That's exactly why I can't do this. I can't live like this." "Then leave and let us be," Mrs. Margaret said bluntly. "Mom, it's not that simple. They're my kids too. Children abandoned by their father aren't his kids. They're orphans with a living parent," the older woman retorted bitterly. The lawyer sensed the situation spiraling and suggested they leave. "We'll settle this in court," he said. "Perfect," Emily agreed. "Because in court, things are decided based on truth, not abandonment and cowardice." After they left, Emily sat on the couch and looked at the 4 babies. The one in the red blanket had stopped crying and was staring at her with dark little eyes that seemed to understand everything. "What do you think? Is Mommy doing the right thing?" she whispered to them. "She's doing exactly the right thing," Mrs. Jenkins answered. "That man doesn't even deserve to be near these children." "But they'll grow up without a father." "Better without a father than with one who doesn't want them," Mrs. Margaret added. "And look at all the good people around you. They'll have more love than they'll ever need." That week, the adjustment to her new job began. Emily found she could manage her tasks during the baby's naps, and the online friends she'd made at the company were very understanding of her situation. "How do you manage to work with 4 babies?" Jennifer, her supervisor, asked during a video call. "Organization and a lot of help," Emily replied, adjusting the baby in the yellow blanket who had just woken up. "And they're very well behaved. You're a warrior. If you need more time for assignments, just let me know." "Thank you. Being able to work from home has been a lifesaver." 2 weeks later, Emily had an unexpected visitor, Mr. Wilson, the owner of the neighborhood pharmacy where she used to live. "Mrs. Johnson, I heard about your situation. I came to bring this," he said, handing over a box filled with diapers, powdered milk and medicine. "Mr. Wilson, I can't accept this. It must have cost a fortune." "It didn't cost a thing. It's a collection we organized among the local shopkeepers." Everyone was outraged by what that man did. "A collection?" "Yes. Sarah went to every store telling your story. People wanted to help. There's enough here for about 2 months." Emily Johnson began to cry, overwhelmed. She had never imagined people's kindness could be so strong. "I don't know how to thank you." "No need to thank us. That's what we're here for. And if you need anything else, just let us know." When Mr. Wilson left, Mrs. Margaret shook her head, moved. "See how many good people there are in the world? You're not alone, Emily. Sometimes I wonder what I did to deserve so much help from such good people. You didn't do anything special. It's just that there are plenty of decent folks who can't stand by and watch injustice." That afternoon, while the babies napped, Emily received the call she had been both waiting for and dreading. It was the lab with the paternity test results. "Mrs. Johnson, we have the test results." "Go ahead," she said, holding her breath. "All 4 babies are the biological children of Mr. Jason Johnson. There's no doubt." "Thank you," she replied and hung up. Mrs. Margaret, who had overheard, made a face. "I was really hoping they weren't. Then he'd have to eat his words." "Mrs. Margaret," Emily laughed for the first time in weeks. "I'm serious. At least now he'll have to pay child support properly. There's no way out." "What if he refuses?" "Then the law will go after him. These days, you can't escape these things." By the end of that week, another surprise arrived. This time it was a call from a reporter at the local paper. "Mrs. Johnson, I'm a reporter for the City Tribune. I heard your story and would like to write a piece." "A piece about what?" "About your situation. A mother of quadruplets abandoned by her husband. It's a story that could inspire other women." "I don't know. It's very personal." "I understand. But sometimes sharing your story can help others going through similar situations." Emily thought for a moment. Maybe telling her story really could help other women. "Can I think about it?" "Of course. I'll call you tomorrow." When the reporter called the next day, Emily had made up her mind. "I'll do the interview, but I want it clear that I'm not doing this to play the victim. It's to show that it's possible to start over." Perfect. That's exactly the angle I wanted. The article was published a week later and had an impact no one expected. The phone wouldn't stop ringing with people offering help, donations, even job opportunities. You've become something of a symbol," Sarah remarked as she helped organize the incoming donations. "That wasn't my intention. But that's what happened. And look how it's helping. Mothers from other states are calling for advice." It's surreal. A month ago, I thought I was the unluckiest person in the world. And now? Now I see that maybe this whole experience has a bigger purpose. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 2 months after the babies were born, Emily had established a routine that ran like clockwork. She woke at 5 in the morning to work for 2 hours before the babies stirred. Mrs. Jenkins arrived at 7 to help with their breakfast, and Mrs. Margaret took over in the afternoon. "You two are the perfect team," Sarah commented as she came over for Saturday lunches. "It's amazing how we've managed to organize everything," Emily Johnson agreed, feeding the baby wrapped in the blue blanket while Mrs. Margaret took care of the other 3. "And how are things at work?" "Better than I expected. My boss said I'm the most organized employee she's ever had." 4 babies will teach anyone organization," Mrs. Margaret laughed. "And Jason, any news?" "The lawyer called me yesterday. He's asking to reduce the child support." "Reduce? But he barely started paying," Sarah said indignantly. "Exactly. He said he's having financial difficulties." "Financial difficulties to support his own children," Mrs. Margaret shook her head. "Every day that passes, I'm more ashamed of having raised that son of mine." That afternoon, an unexpected visitor arrived. It was Amanda, Jason's distant cousin, whom no one had seen in years. "Emily, can I talk to you?" she asked, looking nervous. "Of course, Amanda. Come in." "It's about Jason. I found out some things you need to know." "What kind of things?" "He's not in Chicago like he said. He's living in a tiny apartment right here in New York City." "How do you know?" "Because I saw him at the bakery on my street. He was buying bread and looked really embarrassed when he saw me." "So? He's a nervous wreck, thin, poorly dressed. It looks like things aren't going well for him at all." Emily grew thoughtful. Part of her pitied her ex-husband, but another part thought he was reaping what he'd sown. "Amanda, why are you telling me this?" "Because I think he might be considering coming back, and you need to be prepared." "Coming back? After everything that happened?" "A desperate man will do anything. And from what I saw, he's pretty desperate. Mrs. Margaret, who had overheard the conversation, looked worried. Emily, if he shows up here asking for forgiveness, you can't soften your heart. Mrs. Margaret, after everything we've been through, I doubt he'd even have the courage to show his face here. You don't know men, my dear. When reality hits, they come crawling back. Amanda confirmed Mrs. Margaret's suspicions. He asked me if I knew how you all were doing, if the babies were okay, if you'd managed to get things in order. And what did you say? That you were doing great, that you were working and taking care of the babies like a champion. And how did he react? He stayed quiet, seemed a little remorseful. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Emily kept thinking about her conversation with Amanda. Was Jason really remorseful? And if he was, would it change anything? She looked at the 4 babies sleeping peacefully in their cribs. In 2 months, she'd built a stable life for them. She had a job, support from family and friends, a routine that worked. Why risk all that? The next morning, Emily woke up with a strange feeling, like something was about to happen. And her suspicions were confirmed when, at 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Mrs. Margaret went to answer it and came back with a worried expression. "It's him," she whispered. "Who?" "My son. He's at the door, asking to talk to you." Emily's heart raced. She was feeding the babies and didn't want to stop in the middle of it. "Tell him to wait. I'm just finishing feeding them." "Emily, you don't have to talk to him," Mrs. Margaret warned. "I know, but maybe it's better to settle this now." 20 minutes later, Emily went downstairs to the living room where Jason was waiting. He looked different, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, his beard unkempt. He looked like a man who hadn't slept well in weeks. "Hi, Em," he said quietly. "Hi. How are the babies?" "Good. Growing. Healthy." Can I see them?" Emily hesitated. Part of her wanted to say no, but she thought about the children. They had the right to know their father, even if he was a coward. "You can go up, but quickly, it's their nap time." In the bedroom, Jason looked at the 4 babies with an expression Emily Johnson couldn't decipher. He seemed both emotional and regretful at the same time. "They've grown so much," he remarked. "That's what babies do. It's what they grow." "No, Jason, don't say anything right now. Let's go downstairs." Back in the living room, he tried to explain. "Emily, I know I did everything wrong, but I was desperate, scared." "Scared of what?" "Of not being able to provide for 4 kids, of not being a good father, of not handling so much responsibility. And you thought abandoning your family was the solution." "I wasn't thinking straight. I was panicking." "Jason, you destroyed me. You all left me when I needed you the most." "I know, and I regret it every day." Regret doesn't erase what happened, but it can be the start of change. Emily looked at the man who had once been her husband. He seemed genuinely remorseful, but was that enough? "What do you want, Jason? Why did you come here?" "I want to try again. I want to come home." "What home? You sold our house, remember?" "We could stay here with my mom for now, until I can buy another place." "And you think it's that simple, that you can just show up and say you want to come back?" "No, I know it won't be easy, but I've changed, Em. These past 2 months have been awful. I realized how important you all are to me." Mrs. Margaret, who had been listening from the kitchen, couldn't hold back and stepped into the living room. "Important? If we were important, you wouldn't have abandoned us," she said furiously. "Mom, please. Don't mom me. You've shamed this family. You left a woman who just gave birth to handle 4 babies alone." "I know I messed up. Messed up. You destroyed a family, Jason. That's not a mistake. It's cruelty." Emily stood up from the armchair. "Jason, I need time to think. This is all too much right now." "How much time?" "I don't know. But right now I want you to leave. I need to process everything." "Em, please." "Go, Jason. When I have an answer, I'll call you." After he left, Emily went upstairs to check on the babies. They slept peacefully, unaware of the turmoil around them. "What do you think?" she whispered. "Daddy wants to come back." The baby, wrapped in the yellow blanket, opened their little eyes as if listening. Do you think Mommy should give him another chance? Mrs. Margaret appeared in the doorway, talking to them about their father. Yes, they're the ones most affected by this decision. And what is your heart telling you? It's confused. Part of me still loves Jason, but another part can't forget what he did. Emily, can I give you some advice from someone who's been around? Of course. Love isn't just a feeling. Love is action, and his action was to abandon you when you needed him most. But what if he really has changed? People can change, yes, but real change takes time, and you can't gamble your children's future on a promise. So you think I shouldn't give him a chance? I think you need to think very carefully, because this time it's not just about you, it's about 4 children who need stability. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She kept remembering all the good moments she'd shared with Jason. He really had been a good husband for their 5 years of marriage. Until the twins' pregnancy, they were happy. But she also remembered the pain she felt when he announced the divorce at the hospital, the crushing loneliness, the terror of not knowing how she'd raise 4 babies alone. The next morning, Sarah arrived early to have breakfast with her. I heard Jason showed up yesterday, she said, pouring coffee. Mrs. Margaret told you? She did. So, what are you thinking? I'm confused, Sarah. I don't know what to do. Do you still love him? I think so. But I don't know if love is enough after everything that happened. Emily, can I say something? As your friend? Of course. You've built an amazing life here. You have work. The babies are well cared for. You're independent. Why risk all that? Because maybe the babies have the right to grow up with their father present. Having a father present is different from you two getting back together. He can be part of the children's lives without you rekindling the marriage. Emily grew thoughtful. Sarah was right. Things didn't have to be the way they were before. Do you think I could handle being around him just as the baby's father? I think you can handle anything. You've already proven that. Over the next few days, Emily carefully observed her life. The babies had settled into a healthy routine. She was productive at work. She had a strong support system. Why fix what wasn't broken? On Friday, Jason called. Emily, have you thought about what we talked about? I have, and I have a proposal. What proposal? You can be part of the babies' lives. You can visit them, take them out when they're older. But I don't want to restart our marriage. Why not? Because I don't trust you anymore. You abandoned me at the worst moment of my life. That's not something you forget easily. But I've changed. Maybe. But change is proven by actions, not words. And I'm not willing to bet my stability or my children's on a promise. Jason was quiet for a moment. What if I prove I've changed? If I show I can be trusted? Then we'll talk again. But for now, this is what I'm offering. How do I prove it? By being present in their lives, paying child support on time, showing you truly care about them, not just when it's convenient. Okay, I accept your terms. Then you can visit them Saturday afternoon. But I want to be clear. You're welcome here as their father, not as my husband. On Saturday, Jason arrived promptly at 2 in the afternoon. He brought gifts for the babies and a bouquet of flowers for Emily. The flowers are to apologize, he explained. Thank you, she replied, making it clear this changed nothing. During the visit, he seemed genuinely interested in the babies. He asked about their routine, wanted to know about each one's development, even changed diapers. They're really smart, he remarked. They are. The one in the red blanket is already trying to hold his head up. And the one in the blue blanket? That heart issue he had? Resolved. It was minor and corrected itself over time. That's good. Over the following weeks, Jason kept his visits regular, always on Saturday afternoons for 2 hours. Gradually, Emily noticed he really did seem different, more mature, more responsible. He's being a good father, Mrs. Margaret commented one Sunday. He is, but that doesn't mean he'd be a good husband again. You still don't trust him? Trust is built slowly, and he destroyed mine all at once. I understand, but what if he keeps this up, showing change? Then we'll see, but I'm in no rush to make decisions. 3 months after their first meeting, Jason made a different request. Emily, can I take the babies for a walk? Just around the block. All four? Alone? I'll manage. I want them to get used to me. Emily hesitated, but she thought it was important for the children to have that experience with their father. Okay. But just for an hour, and only to the park across the street. Deal. It felt strange watching Jason leave with all four babies in the donated quadruple stroller, but it was also freeing. Emily took the chance to enjoy a long bath and relax. When they returned, the babies were happy and Jason looked fulfilled. "How was it?" she asked. "Amazing. They loved watching the other kids at the park. And some mothers came to talk to me, complimenting how beautiful they are. And you, how did you feel?" "Proud. Very proud to be their father." That night, Emily reflected on what she had observed. Jason really seemed to have changed. He was being a present, caring father. But still, something inside her couldn't completely forget the abandonment. The following month, a proposal arrived that would change the course of the story. A baby products company had seen the article about Emily and wanted to partner with her. "We'd like you to be our brand ambassador," the company representative explained. "You're an example of a strong mother who inspires other women." "Ambassador, how does it work?" "You'd use our products with your babies and share the experience on social media. In return, we offer a very attractive contract." The proposed amount was 3 times what Emily earned with her digital marketing work. "Can I think about it?" "Of course, but it would be very beneficial for both sides." When Emily told Sarah about the proposal, her friend was thrilled. You can't turn this down. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." "But I'll have to expose a lot of my personal life." "You already did that with the newspaper article, and look how positive it was." "It's different. This would be constant." "Think about the baby's future. With this money, you can guarantee their education, health, everything they need." Emily knew Sarah was right. It was a chance to secure total financial independence. What if Jason doesn't like it? He might say, "I'm exposing the kids." The kids are yours too, and he has no right to complain after what he did. In the end, Emily decided to accept the offer. She began posting about her routine with the quadruplets, organization tips, and products that actually worked. In no time, she gained thousands of followers. "You've become an influencer," Sarah teased. "I never thought this would happen to me." Life has its surprises. Jason found out about Emily's new venture through social media. The following Saturday, he came to talk about it. I saw you've been posting about the babies online." "Yes, it's my job now." "But don't you think you're exposing them too much?" "Jason, I only show positive moments, nothing that could harm them. But it's a lot of exposure. Look, I'm not going to argue with you about this. It's my decision, and it's giving me financial independence." "Okay, but what if?" "There's no what if. This is how it's going to be. If you don't agree, that's your problem." Jason realized he had no power to interfere with this decision and dropped the subject. The weeks passed, and their relationship stabilized. He remained a present father, and she stayed firm about not reconciling their marriage. "Don't you think it's time to give him a real chance?" Mrs. Margaret asked one Sunday. "Why do you say that?" "Because I see you two get along, and he's really changed." "Mrs. Margaret, I've built an independent life. Why give that up?" "It's not giving up, it's sharing, having a partner to share responsibilities." "But I like my life as it is." "And the babies? Wouldn't it be better for them to have their parents together?" "Only if the parents were together out of true love, not obligation or convenience." Mrs. Margaret grew thoughtful. "And don't you love Jason anymore?" I don't know. Sometimes I think yes, sometimes no." "Then maybe it's time to find out." 2 days later, Jason showed up with an unusual proposal. Can I take you out to dinner? Just the 2 of us." "Dinner? Why?" "Because we've never really talked about everything that happened. There's always someone around or the babies needing attention." Emily hesitated. Was this really a good idea? "I don't know, Jason. It's just dinner. To talk like 2 adults." "And where would that be?" "At that restaurant you always liked, the Italian place on Broadway. It was where they'd had their first date years ago. The choice wasn't accidental." "All right, but just to talk." "Just to talk." On the day of the dinner, Emily dressed more carefully than she had in months. Mrs. Margaret and Mrs. Jenkins watched the babies. "You look beautiful," Mrs. Margaret remarked. "I'm nervous." "That's normal, you two have a lot to discuss." At the restaurant, Jason was already waiting at a reserved table. He'd also dressed up and looked nothing like the desperate man who'd shown up months earlier. "You look stunning," he said as she sat down. "Thank you." They ordered their food and sat in silence for a few minutes, each gathering their thoughts. "Emily, I really want to apologize," Jason began. "You've already apologized many times, but I never properly explained what happened to me." "Then explain." "When we found out it was 4 babies, I panicked. I started doing crazy calculations in my head, how much it would cost to raise 4 kids, how I'd manage to support everyone. But you made good money." "I did, but not enough for 4 kids, so I took out loans, thinking I'd get a promotion at work." "And you didn't?" "Not only did I not get it, but I almost got fired because of all the mistakes I started making. I was so anxious I couldn't focus." Emily listened quietly, trying to understand his state of mind back then. "Then I got paranoid that you'd leave me if you found out I was broke," he continued. "Why would I leave you over money?" "Because I thought you were only with me because I could give you a comfortable life." "Jason, you've known me for years. When have I ever acted like a gold digger? Never. It was all in my head. But I wasn't thinking straight. And that's why you sold our house. I thought if I gathered every penny I could, I'd pay off the debts and start over somewhere else." "Without telling me?" "Because I knew you wouldn't agree, and I'd already decided to leave." "Leave and abandon me with 4 babies?" "Yeah, it was the most cowardly thing I've ever done." Jason looked genuinely remorseful. Emily could see it in his eyes. "So what made you change your mind? Why come back?" "Because life without you all meant nothing. I couldn't stop thinking about the babies, how they were doing, if they were healthy, if you were managing." "And it took you 2 months to realize that?" "It took me 2 months to admit I'd made the biggest mistake of my life." They paused to eat a little. The mood had lightened. "Jason, I get that you were desperate, but you could have talked to me. We've always talked about everything." "I know, but I was ashamed. Ashamed of the mess I'd made with money. Mistakes we fixed together. Abandonment isn't something you can fix. I know that now. And you really think you've changed?" "I know I have. These months taking care of the babies showed me how much I want to be a father, how much I want to be part of their lives." "And mine? Do you want to be part of my life?" Jason looked her in the eyes. "More than anything in the world. But I know I have to earn your trust back." "And how do you plan to do that?" "By being the father they deserve and the man you deserve. Every day for as long as it takes." Emily pushed her food around her plate, thoughtful. "Jason, you know I've built an independent life, right? I have my job, my routine." "I know, and I don't want you to give up any of that. I want to fit into your life, not change it. What if I decide I don't want to save our marriage? Are you going to accept it?" "I will, but I'll keep trying to show you I can be different. And if I decide I want to try again, then I'll spend the rest of my life making up for the time I lost because of my stupidity." Emily smiled for the first time during dinner. "You seem very convinced of your remorse." "I am, because it's real." "All right, I'll think about what you said. That's all I ask, a chance to prove I've changed." On the way home, Emily reflected on the conversation. Jason seemed sincere in his regret, and she had to admit she still felt something for him. When she got home, the babies were already asleep. Mrs. Margaret was waiting in the living room. "How did it go?" "Enlightening." "Did he convince you?" "He helped me understand what happened better, but convincing is another matter." "And what will you do?" "I'll keep watching. If he's really changed, time will tell." In the following weeks, Jason maintained his role as a present and respectful father. He didn't pressure Emily for any decision, but continued showing genuine interest in the family. "He's being very patient," Sarah remarked. "He is, and that's a good sign." "Do you think you'll give him a chance?" "I don't know yet, but I'm not completely ruling it out anymore. That's progress. The next month, the babies turned 6 months old. Emily organized a small celebration at home. Jason helped with everything from decorations to food. "You two look like a real couple," Mrs. Jenkins observed. "We're trying to be a functional family," Emily replied. "And it's working well." During the party, Emily watched Jason playing with the babies. He had truly transformed, affectionate, patient, present. Nothing like the desperate man who had shown up at the hospital with divorce papers. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, stepping closer. "How much you've changed?" "For the better, I hope." "Definitely for the better. Em, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead." "Do you think you'll ever fully forgive me?" Emily stayed silent for a moment, watching the 4 babies playing on the colorful rug. "You know what I've learned these past months, Jason? Forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about accepting that people can change and deserve a second chance. And do you think I deserve that second chance? I think you're earning it every day." "Does that mean—" "It means maybe it's time for us to try building something new. Not what we had before. That's gone. But something new based on who you've become and who I've become." Jason smiled with a mix of relief and hope. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying I'm willing to try. Slowly, rebuilding trust. No rush, no pressure." But I need one thing to be clear. If you let me down again, there won't be a third chance. I understand, and I won't let you down." "Then let's see where this goes." That night, after everyone left and the babies were asleep, Emily and Jason stayed up talking in the living room. It was like getting to know each other all over again, discovering who they'd become after everything they'd been through. "You know I've changed a lot too, right?" Emily said. "I know. You've grown stronger, more independent. And you're okay with that?" "I'm proud of it. You've become an incredible woman." "I've always been incredible," she teased. "True. I was just too stupid to see it. Well, now you've got a second chance to appreciate me properly, and I won't waste it." 6 months later, Emily and Jason made their reconciliation official. It wasn't easy or quick. There were moments of doubt, discussions about trust, and agreements on their new family dynamic. But they managed to build something solid, based on mutual respect and love for their children. Jason never made important decisions without consulting Emily again, and she no longer depended entirely on him for her emotional and financial security. "You two are an example," Sarah said at the Quadruplets' first birthday party. "Of what?" Emily asked. "That it's possible to rebuild a relationship after a serious crisis. It wasn't easy. The best things never are." Emily looked around the party. The babies, now 1 year old, crawled around the house under the watchful eyes of Jason, Mrs. Margaret, Mrs. Jenkins, and many other friends who had become family during the tough times. "You know what I learned from all this," she said to Sarah. "What?" "That sometimes life breaks us to teach us how strong we are, and that true love isn't the kind that never fails, but the kind that learns to rebuild after failure." Jason approached just then, carrying 2 of the babies. "What are you two talking about?" "Life lessons," Emily replied. "And what was the biggest lesson you learned?" he asked. Emily looked at him, at their children, at the whole family gathered in the room. That love multiplies when it's needed most, and that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what really matters. And what really matters? This, she gestured to the scene around them, family, people who truly love you, and the courage to start over when necessary. Jason kissed her forehead. "Thank you for giving me the chance to learn that too. Thank you for becoming someone who deserved that chance." And so, the family that had broken at its most fragile moment rebuilt itself stronger. The Quadruplets grew up surrounded by love, not just from their parents, but from an entire community that formed around them during the hard times. Emily never forgot the pain of abandonment, but she learned that it's possible to turn pain into strength, crisis into opportunity, and endings into new beginnings, and that sometimes the truest love is the kind that survives its own failures and learns to be better. The end. What did you think of this story of overcoming and new beginnings? Sometimes life puts us in situations that seem impossible, but it's in those moments that we discover our true strength. Tell us in the comments, do you think Emily made the right decision by giving Jason a second chance? Your opinion is very important to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories.